Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're delighted to have you as a part of our webinar group for the user group. We conducted this session earlier last week, and what was it, Tuesday? No, Wednesday last week, and have obviously extended that now to webinar as well. So thanks for making the time to join us today. Let's get straight into it. We've got an hour to crack through quite a bit of information, but today's session is really about understanding the contact within Eloqua and all of the touch points. And we'll explore a little bit about forms and also how some of the information that sales or marketing gather can actually help and support the sales team as well. So let's get started. First thing we want to focus on is understanding how we can build a better view of our contacts and their behavior. The best way to think of it really is that the contact really is at the heart of your Eloqua system. I suppose just like they should be in the context of a CRM. So it's all about customer relationship management. And so the Eloqua system is much the same. So everything that you do really is driven around driving an individual to progress in whatever direction it is, whether it's to buy something, whether it's as part of a membership of a not-for-profit organization or a donor or whatever the case may be. It's all in relation to the customer or the contact. The next step we want to look at is how forms can really help you get much more out of building that contact profile. And through form submissions that people may do on a regular basis, instead of simply presenting the same information to them each time, let's ask them a few additional questions that can help round out their profile and give you a much better idea as to who the person is. And the next one we want to look at is that contact view and the data that you capture and the various ways that information can be shared with the sales team. So some of you may have Eloqua integrated with your CRM system, and so access to Profiler, the Eloqua Profiler app, is a key component and certainly a great way to make sure that the digital body language that you're capturing and all of the events and communications you're having with people is easily shared and easily accessible to the sales users via the CRM. So we seem to have a little bit of a tradition that I'm developing at least, where we like to share a Steve Jobs quote. So this one is Steve talking in relation to focus they have at Apple on the customer, and that it really is part of their DNA. Talks about voting here. He talks about thumbs up or down, and that's who they think about. They think about the customer, and they think their job is to take responsibility for that complete user experience. And there's certainly no argument, I think, today that marketing really is in control of that user experience, and it's not just simply talking to people before they purchase your products or services or become engaged with you in some way. It's really about once they come on board, what does that experience look like as well? And so we'll explore that in a bit more detail. But let's get cracking. Let's dive straight into and understand more about the Eloqua Contact and how it sits at the heart of your Eloqua platform. So everything you do, every campaign you run, really the objective is either to have people pick up a telephone and contact you, perhaps to download something, if it's an educational or lead nurturing type of campaign. But everything that you do within Eloqua drives you to improve and increase the interactions that you have with customers. Let me give you a bit of a diagram that potentially provides you with just some insight into all of the various ways that you can drive and improve the quality of data that you have in relation to an individual. So at its very core, at the top of the screen there, you can see the profile, the contact profile data. Also over time, as people identify various subscriptions and identify preferences, you want to certainly store that information against the contact, which would in turn enable you to segment by that information, and also at the same time potentially deliver slightly different information to people based on their preferences that they deliver to you. Custom data relates specifically to third-party data outside of Eloqua. So your CRM is the perfect candidate for that information. It would be custom data that would come into the system. You may also have, like we do, ReadyTalk, which we use obviously to run these webinars. So we have a ReadyTalk custom object, which enables us to capture all of the digital body language that relates to ReadyTalk. And that information is captured and again enables us to segment by that information over time as well. Account data. So account data, keeping in mind that everything to do with Eloqua is about people and not organizations. So account data typically comes into Eloqua from a CRM or from a ERP system of some sort. And it's really used to help you segment. We would, from a best practice point of view, discourage you from being in a position where people are able to update account information. Account information for most organizations is quite critical and impacts all sorts of things in relation to where invoices are sent and contracts are drawn up to, legal addresses that are required, etc. So all of that information, the source of truth really should be the CRM, but having that information available to the marketing team via Eloqua really is for a segmentation point of view. So if you're doing major account management, perhaps someone like Telstra or BHP, some large organizations, it could be customers, you can go into Eloqua and say to Eloqua, well, give me all of my contacts that are at the account Telstra. And so then you can start to do some segmenting down based purely from an account point of view. Not just that, you would also have information like their industry, potentially, maybe the size of the organization, their total annual revenue. There could be a whole list of things that you would have stored against the account. And again, all of that information is helpful for the Eloqua user and the marketing team to be able to segment by in their various communications. Now, of course, one of the main reasons you're using Eloqua, if you were perhaps in the room when Oracle or Marketing Cube sold you the solution, it would have largely focused around the ability to track digital body language. And so that digital body language is critical to helping you understand the journey and the path people are on, and often mixed with the custom data generally from the CRM. So it's about email activity, it's form submissions, it's everything they're doing across your website. You may have additional microsites that you've set up. As long as you've got the Eloqua tracking code also installed on those websites and those digital properties, you can track them as well. So just understanding what they're looking at, that can also potentially feed into being a trigger-based campaign. And external activities. External activities is a great feature. We use it all the time at Marketing Cube. It's not something that I see a lot of customers using, but it is a bit of a missed opportunity if you're not playing with it. So the benefit of external activities is to bring those activities that are taking place in the real world, that is the face-to-face world, i.e. attending a conference or a large meeting of some sort. You can record that information against the contact in Eloqua as an external activity. So you'll be able to create a segment 12 months down the track that says, give me everybody that attended our trade show in August last year, everybody that visited our booth, everybody that potentially received a demo. As long as that information is captured, it can be on a piece of paper, it can make its way then to an Excel file. That information can then be loaded into Eloqua and simply stored against the email address, which is your unique identifier. So all of those aspects, all of that information works its way in to helping you understand more about the contact. Now, everything that you do within Eloqua from a segmentation point of view, dynamic content, preferences, subscriptions, all of those things are largely driven by the information stored on the contact. Now, of course, you again have custom data objects that we talked about. So like the CRM would be a custom data object. You may have additional data that you want to segment by, and that's absolutely doable. And you'll notice when you're looking at segments and dynamic content that you've got the ability to also segment and create rules based on custom data as well. So there's a whole swag of ways that you can prepare a segment and create rules to deliver the right content to people. Let's have a look at the actual contact. Now, it's interesting. It may be that you occasionally look at the contact, but I would encourage you to try and become a little bit more intimately aware about the information that sits on the contact. I suppose it's very rare for an Eloqua user to dive in and look at an individual contact because generally we're talking about groups. We're talking about hundreds, thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of people in particular segments that we're communicating with. And so we're not really that interested in what an individual is doing as a marketing team. We're more interested in what a group of people are doing. But if you have a scenario, for instance, where a salesperson may come up to you and say, well, why didn't John get my invite to the event next week? The first port of call should be the contact, because the contact will reveal everything that's happened in context of that particular person. So let's just walk you through some of the aspects here so we're clear on what we're looking at. The first one is in relation to recent activity. So recent activity, I've tried several times to get an answer from Oracle. My best understanding is that recent refers to about the last 30 days. So that would be an answer for you in relation to what is recent. On the right-hand side, you've got a quick overview and a snapshot of the subscription status, whether or not their email address is valid. As you can see in this particular example, Tim's email address is valid. If he was globally unsubscribed, it would show you right there that he's globally unsubscribed. If you've got physical address information and if you also have the salesperson field populated, now that particular field probably should be populated with the contact owner from your CRM. So if your CRM is integrated, that typically should be integrated and connected to the contact owner within that organization. Now, depending on the size of your organization, you may not use security labels, but let me give you an example as to where security labels can be helpful. So for multinational organizations who have offices across various geographies, security labels enable you to sort of segment the actual Eloqua database as a whole. So for instance, I can see we've got the folks from 3M visiting on the webinar today. Hello, Stephen. An example with someone like 3M, global brand, offices right around the world. They'll have Australian contacts. They'll have New Zealand contacts. I assume would probably have Singapore-based contacts, maybe Malaysia, China, the US, etc. What security labels enable you to do is to restrict access. For example, New Zealand folks within 3M are not able to access Australian-based contact. Now, certain rules need to be put in place to determine what constitutes an Australian contact versus a New Zealand contact. But that's what security labels enable you to do. What that helps avoid is somebody in New Zealand putting together a fantastic event in Auckland, inviting people along, and through their segmentation, for whatever criteria they've chosen, they end up with a few thousand Australian contacts invited to a face-to-face event at the Hilton Hotel in Auckland next week. Probably not a good look because obviously most Sydney people won't be travelling all the way to Auckland for a particular event. So security labels is really quite helpful. We use it in the context of working with Oracle on joint campaigns. So what we do is when we load any contacts that Oracle may share with us for joint campaigns, we provide a security level to those contacts that ensure that they can only participate in an Oracle joint campaign, which is both an email group, which is an email group that we have assigned. And they're automatically excluded from everything else that we do as an organization. So our newsletters, our webinars, for instance, those sorts of things. And so security labels can be quite helpful depending on the size of your organization. Let's dive in a little bit further. So if you've got Eloqua open there and you've got two screens or you wanted to open Eloqua, you might want to do so and you can follow along in this particular area. So field details. Field details is effectively where you have all of the individual details stored. Its first name, its last name, its job title, their address, etc., etc. You may also have in there CRM integration information, so CRM contact IDs, account IDs, etc. All of those things are stored there. And if they're stored there under field details, that tells you that you're also able to segment by them. The next one is in relation to preferences. So preferences, this is where what you see as an email group, the consumer or your customer or member, they see as their preferences. And so you may have an event email group. They will see that as an event preference. And so they can go ahead and subscribe to that individual preference or subscription so that next time you run an event and you build your first segment, you always want to make sure that you're always getting those people who have actually expressed specific interest in that particular topic or subscription. So that's always your starting point. You can also see if people have globally unsubscribed there. You can resubscribe people if people have done that by accident. You can easily do that from the preferences area. Campaigns, this just basically gives you a high-level view in relation to all of the campaigns that a person has participated in, and you can provide a date parameter for inclusion in various campaigns. The activity log, this is where you go, as I've said right here on the screen, this is where you go when the salesperson says, well, why didn't John get the invite to the event next week? The activity log is definitely your first port of call because it will give you a complete summary of every activity, but it will also enable you to filter. So if you're trying to find out whether they even sent the invitation, you can filter by email sends and you'll be able to see immediately if that person was in fact sent the invitation. So yeah, everything you need to know is there. And the activity log is a great place to start to try to figure those things out. The scoring area shows you all active. It actually shows you all inactive lead scoring models as well, by the way. But generally, it's the active lead scoring models that we want to look at. So again, depending on the size of your organization, you may have one active lead scoring model, or you may have 10 or 12 active lead scoring models, depending on, again, the size of your organization, different departments, etc. But they're all available there to be viewed. Now, this last one, link to records, think of that in the context of custom data objects. So, as I said earlier, we use ReadyTalk. We also have our CRM integrated here. So all of that information is shown here under linked records. So the contact provides you with much more information than just simply first name, last name, email address, and a few other bits and pieces. There's a lot of information that you're able to understand about the contact directly from this part of Eloqua. Let me just give you some nuts and bolts to understand in relation to the contact. So the contact contains 56 system fields. So the system fields is first name, last name, email, their address, telephone numbers, industry. Well, there's 56 of them, so they're all in there. There's also a number of system fields that relate to CRM integration, excuse me, and some of those are actually branded. So you may see Oracle Sales Cloud, you may see SFDC for Salesforce.com, etc. If, for instance, you're an Oracle Sales Cloud customer and you clearly won't be integrating anything into those SFDC fields, if you'd like to get those fields back and actually use them, you can do that. You just simply need to log a service request with Oracle, specifically identifying the fields that you'd like to recycle, for want of a better word, and that can be taken care of for you. So in addition to your 56 system fields, you then have 250 custom fields. And so these are the fields that you can do whatever you want. Information that you might want, if you're running a lot of events, for instance, you may want to capture people's dietary preferences. So if people have any allergies or things like that. So instead of just capturing that information once on a form and simply leaving it sitting in the back end of the database, you may actually want to take that information and post it directly to the contact. What that means in future, because you've now captured and stored that information on the contact, in future events, you can proactively identify and have that potentially pre-populate onto the form when they go to register for their next event, which is kind of nice because that way they recognize that, hey, you remembered. I don't have to tell you that again. I've told you once. I don't need to tell you 1,000 times. So that's cool. Account fields, similar construct. You have 17 system fields and again 250 custom fields. So again, there are a few, not many, of the account fields that you can recycle, but you've certainly got 250 to play with. Now, if you wanted to get a breakdown of the contact fields and understand exactly what they are, so you're crystal clear, if you go to the Eloqua Help Center, which is now accessible from within Eloqua from any of the main objects, and just simply search for contact field definitions. The other common mistake that we see some people make is that they go ahead and create a custom field when in fact there's already a system field that exists for the exact same purpose, which obviously is just a waste of a field and then can cause issues later when you're trying to merge them and realize you've got duplicates, etc. So always perhaps use the contact field definition from a system point of view to understand what's available and what your options are. So another way to really help you understand your various contacts within the system is to create various views. So on the screen right now, you can see the contacts overview screen. And up in the top right-hand corner, just right here, you can see the little eye. And so that basically is giving you access to various contact views. So a contact view, all it's doing is slicing your data in a slightly different way. As you can see, we've got numerous fields there that we want to look at. The CRM integration one is quite helpful because it enables you from within Eloqua to look at a contact or a group of contacts, and especially where you've got leads and contacts, because it's quite helpful to be able to look at a list of people and understand those that have a lead ID from the CRM, but perhaps don't have a contact or account ID, which tells you they're obviously just a lead right now. They've not been converted. You could also use that from a filtering point of view, that particular information, when you create a segment. So return to me all prospects who have a lead ID field populated, but not a contact ID populated. So there are all sorts of ways you can help to slice and dice that information. Another one that we use quite a bit is in the context events where we want to produce name tags. So we'll usually have a shared filtered list, shared contact list, sorry, and we go to an event view which has first name, last name, job title, company name, maybe mobile phone and desk number. And then we can just spit that straight out into Excel and produce the name tags without having to get an Excel spreadsheet that's potentially got 250 plus columns of information that I then have to fish through manually to delete all the stuff that's not relevant, just so we can produce name tags. So slicing and dicing the data in different views can make your life a little bit easier and just speed things up a bit. Now you can create views depending on the level of access that you have to Eloqua. So if you click on the access settings, which you can see I've got highlighted up there in the top right-hand corner, you'll come through to this area, but as I said, it will depend on the level of access that you have. So what I want to show you now is what full access looks like, and depending, as I said, you may see slightly different things. But effectively what you're looking for is managing fields and views, which is over here on the far right-hand side of the screen. And so once you click on fields and views, you arrive to the fields and views screen, and there's a tab. You'll see the tab here at the top of the screen with two options, one being fields, the other being views. Views is the one that you want. And you can see here we've got highlighted the event registration one, and here we've got all the various information that we wanted to capture to help us. So it just simply means we can spit that information straight out to Excel, and it really just saves time. So that is quite helpful. Let's jump in and have a look at a contact. What I may do is check with Tim in relation to questions. Looks like I can see one here from Anika. Okay, certainly. So a question there from Rita Silva. Yes, yeah, I think what you're saying there is absolutely correct. So where you've got a global license for Eloqua, and now we need to clarify that, whether or not it's a global instance, as in a single instance of Eloqua. You may have a global license agreement, but each country may have its own instance of Eloqua. But if it is one single instance of Eloqua, absolutely. Looking to use the security labels is probably a really good idea. You can use the chat function, folks, to ask any questions. Tim is online and is monitoring those for us as well. So please let us know if you have any questions. Let's have a look at the contact. First thing we want to do is jump in and have a look at some contacts. Now I've preloaded this to save us a little bit of time with everybody from Marketing Cube. So we'll pick on Tim, since he was the one we were using earlier. So once you're inside the actual contact, you'll see a whole range of recent activity, as hopefully you can see on the screen right now. Let's have a look at each of these individual tabs to give you a little bit more information. So the same rule applies here in relation to your views. The view function is available from just about anywhere in Eloqua where you're looking at a list of contacts. So whether it's in segments and you view those contacts within the segment, whether it's here at the individual contact or you've got a shared list, for instance, that contains a group of contacts, you can adjust the view based on the information that you've set up within your views, etc. And so you can see that information on screen right there. Preferences. So let's have a quick look here at what the preferences enable you to do. So you can see you're able to unsubscribe somebody immediately if for some reason you get a frantic phone call from somebody and they just absolutely want somebody removed and no longer communicated with. This is the place you do it. And this is a global unsubscribe. So once you click here on the unsubscribe link, it's game over. So that person will receive no more communications. The valid email address is also set there. You can reset it if for some reason Eloqua has interpreted through a hard bounce or something like that, but you've been able to confirm that the email address is actually now valid. You can come in here and actually reset the status of that particular email address, which means Eloqua will try again to send them a communication or email. Now, sending text only, I'm not really sure who in today's age would utilize that function, but that's where it rests. Now, if you're going to use that function, you need to make sure that your text-based emails look good. And there's a little bit of work involved in doing that and just making sure they look as good as they can. Now, over here on the right-hand side is where you've got each of your email groups. Well, this, of course, is Marketing Cube's instance, and you'll see here Tim is fairly well subscribed to most of those programs, or those email groups, sorry. But you can actually make some changes here at an email group level if you need to. So if somebody calls in again and says, look, I just don't want access to, I don't want to receive any more event invitations, all you need to do is come in here, do a right click on here, and you'll see that the option pops up to either subscribe or unsubscribe. And so you can adjust that accordingly. And of course, you can always take it back as well. So that means I'll still receive other communications, but they simply won't receive the event communications. Now, when you come to the campaign tab, you need to apply a bit of a date filter. And as you do that, Eloqua will do some thinking and then return to you some information. Let's have a look. So under activity log, so there's a whole range of campaigns that he's been working on recently to do some webinars that we've got coming up. So you can see those sitting there. If we take that back a little bit further, and you'll see a whole swag of information there. So you can get a high-level view. The email sends is often the one that people are curious about. They want to understand if somebody was actually sent something. In the same context, you can then change that filter and look at email opens. And so you can start to see exactly what's going on and what people have actually opened, etc. And you'll see there's everything. You've got website visits, program builder entry as well if you're using programs, any external calls that are being made, etc. So yeah, you've got a whole swag of options available there to help you understand more about what the actual contact is doing. Last one, or the second last one, we have scoring. So you'll see both active and inactive scoring models are displayed, so you can access those and see what's going on. And at linked records, ReadyTalk is one that we use. And so here you can see there's a range of different pieces of information that you've got available. So you can see we've done some testing, etc. But whatever it is that you've got there, whether it be Salesforce.com information, we use the SMS function. So here you can see different SMSs that have been sent to Tim over time as well, or at least that he's been sent SMSs, I should say. You can't actually see what the SMS was, but you can actually see that he's been sent various SMSs. That's the contact, and the contact really is at the core of everything we're doing. So if there's any questions, please shoot those through on the chat function. Alrighty, let's move on to Beyond Form Submissions. So the form is another great way that you're able to access a whole range of information, or let me rephrase that, a way to capture a whole range of information from people. And so if in the process of submitting a form, you have the opportunity to ask a few more questions, you really want to take advantage of that scenario and ask those questions. If, one example, we have a client in the financial services space who was running a series of telephone conference calls with different financial planners across Australia and New Zealand. And soon after launching Eloqua, they shot out an invitation. The difference from the experience point of view for the financial planners was that when they clicked on the link to register, they were brought to an Eloqua landing page with a form. The form actually pre-populated with their first name, their last name, their details, etc., and then there was a little bit more information that they needed to provide. One of the financial planners in New Zealand shot an email through to their CEO saying, thank you so much for knowing who I am. I've been dealing with you for nearly 15 years, and every time I fill in a form, I have to tell you the same information over and over and over again. It was such a delight to be able to come to the form and effectively fill in one or two fields and then hit register because you know who I am. I think as marketers, we potentially sometimes overlook how these types of functions can be received. We sort of take them for granted. That's what we do with all of our campaigns. But don't underestimate how people can feel when they go through these experiences and they get a little bit of recognition that, hey, you know who I am. So one example. Now, ways that you may use forms today, there could be a whole swag of ways, but you've got, at most basic, you've probably got a contact form on your website. You may have multiple forms on the website for people to access or download thought leadership or make inquiries or request a demo for software that you may have. Or have a product demo sent to them, a physical product demo. You may have a range of events that you run, etc., where you're presenting forms to people. So it's certainly conceivable that an individual who is somewhat engaged with your organization over the course of a few months could come in contact with multiple forms. And so where they come in contact with multiple forms, there's opportunity there to ask multiple questions and not simply the same question every single time. The ability to access forms comes through from the asset area within Eloqua. Here you're able to create forms from scratch. You may have a range of templates, certainly like an event template, maybe download a white paper template. You could have a whole swag of templates in there. The ability to integrate an external form. So that's what we call reposting. So if you've got a beautiful website and some beautifully designed forms, etc., you don't want to replace those with just an Eloqua form sitting on an Eloqua landing page where you can provide some cosmetics. So what you can do is simply recreate that form in Eloqua, take the HTML from Eloqua, and then load that behind the form on your website. So now when people fill in the form on your website, that information is automatically loaded directly into Eloqua. Now, why do you want to do that? Well, there's a whole range of reasons. One of the major reasons is consolidation within one location of all form activity, and certainly Eloqua is a great place for that to happen. But it's also the form processing steps. It's the things that happen at the back end of the form that you can automate with Eloqua that really drive a much better experience. At its most basic, it's sending a personalized email saying, "Dear John, dear Mary, thank you so much for filling in your details. We appreciate that. We've got your information, and we'll be in touch shortly." You can automatically notify people. You can automatically route that straight to the CRM through a program if you wanted to do that. There's a long list of possibilities for you. Let's have a look at some of the basic processing steps that most organizations will use. Now, what I've got listed here at the top are probably the core 5 or so that you would use. So updating contacts with form data, that's the critical one. That one means that the information that you're capturing will actually be transferred and stored against the contact. If you fail to use that particular processing step, you don't lose the information. It's always held by Eloqua. It's just simply held now in the form, which you can access and download into Excel, and then you'd have to bring that back in again and post it against the contact. So update contacts with form data is the critical one that you always want. The next one there is send submitter an email. So usually you want to confirm for people that what they've done has actually worked. They've hit submit on a form, they've come to a thank you page. The email is just simply confirmation that what they've done has actually worked. Now this next one, the notification email, think about that as an internal construct. So this is all about your organization and notifying people within your organization about what's just happened. A great example here is that you, again, if we have the contact owner from the CRM synchronized into Eloqua against the contact in Eloqua, you can automate the notification email process to an individual salesperson. So you certainly don't want to have a long list of 25, 30 salespeople all receiving notification emails when anybody submits a form. That's just going to kill everybody. But what you can do is deliver an email using a field merge into that notification email that will send the email notification just to the salesperson who owns the relationship of the person who submitted the form. Redirecting to a web page. Now, we use that term web page fairly loosely because you can send them to an Eloqua landing page if you wanted to, which enables you to personalize their content in a bit more detail. Or you may want to send them to your home page, or if the offer that you're outlining is product-based, you may want to send them directly to a product-based page within your website. So there are all sorts of options available to you there. To give you an idea, I mean, you can send them to the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald if you wanted to. You're not limited there at all. Any URL will work. This function here is a good one to get in the habit of doing. So subscribing contacts globally, what that means is if somebody's already subscribed globally, well, that's fine. Nothing's going to happen. It'll just be business as usual. But if you've got somebody who has previously globally unsubscribed from your organization, if they've come across an ad online or a colleague forwards them something and they think, oh, that's cool, actually, I'll grab that information, they can go ahead and fill in the form, they can submit the form, but if they've previously globally unsubscribed, they'll never receive the email. So something to think about as possibly a standard inclusion in all of your forms. I can see a question here from Yana. Just 1 second. Tim, could you capture that question? And I'll come back to you on that. I'm not 100% clear on how to answer that one for you, but we'll certainly get an answer for you, Jana, no problems at all. Okay, so the next step is Program Builder. So the most common use of the Program Builder from a form processing step is to push a lead directly through to the CRM. So you may use lead scoring model as your threshold, and once it reaches a certain threshold, well, then it gets sent through. But in the context of a particular campaign, regardless of lead score, regardless of anything, if somebody submits that form, you want them to go straight through to the CRM as a lead. And so that's one way you can achieve that. You can also place conditions on that. Depending on the types of responses people give you in the form, you may not want to send everybody straight through as a lead, but you can certainly control who goes through. You've also got the ability from a form processing step to move somebody, or add them to another campaign. So you may have a sort of top of funnel type exercise campaign running, sort of dripping campaigns into various people, and then based on a particular behavior, i.e. a form submission at some point, that in your view may escalate them, or they've provided information in that form that now enables you to target them a little more specifically. Perhaps you've captured their industry as a part of this particular form. You may want to now take them and move them into a different campaign. And so that can be easily achieved at the form level. Then shared contact lists. You may have various shared contact lists. You may want to group everybody that downloads whatever you're offering here into a single shared list that you can later use to include or exclude people from future campaigns to make sure that they don't get it again, sort of exercise. And then the last processing step there you can see down the bottom of the screen is in relation to an email group level subscription. So on this particular form, there was a tick box at the bottom of the form saying, please opt me in to event communications. So it's always a good idea, where possible, to probably ask these questions across any campaign that you're doing. So any campaign you're running that you may have people fill in a form, take that opportunity to offer them something else. So it could be an opportunity to subscribe to your newsletter, it could be event communications, it could be product updates, etc. It could be a whole range of things based on your email groups. Just take that opportunity, and should someone tick the box, well, yes, you can place a condition on that processing step to then subscribe them. Alrighty, so hidden fields. Hidden fields are a construct within a form that enable you to hardwire some information into the form. Or if it's a field merge, I suppose it's not hardwired, but a field merge enables you to provide any range of information. And identifying who the CRM contact owner is a good example of where a field merge can work. Let me show you one example of what that might look like. Here's a form. Let me draw your attention to the very bottom. So that last field at the very bottom there is a hidden field, and you'll see it says salesperson email. Hopefully you can see that. It says salesperson email, and it's highlighted yellow. So we know that it's a field merge because it's highlighted yellow, and it means that information will pre-populate onto the form. Now, keeping in mind it's a hidden field, so it means that only the system sees it and only you see it as an Eloqua person. It means that when the person reaches the page out on the internet, well, they won't see it. It's not visible to them, but it is captured in the back end of the form. So when we get over to the form processing steps, what we're doing is we're using that field merge information to send the notification email. And if you haven't got it, you would use the plus symbol at the top of the screen there to add send notification email. And then once you've got it, it appears like so. And you'll see under general settings that there's a few options available. That's the information here at the top of the screen. What we're doing is we're using the value of a form field to select an email address to send it to. And in this particular case, the field we're using is the Marketing Cube salesperson email address, which, as we saw on the previous screen, was actually a field merge. So it will mean for us that as an individual submits the form, in the process of doing that, it will check against the contact to see who the salesperson is, specifically their email address, and it will bring that information into the form, and they will then be the recipient of the notification email. So if you've got a sales team of 3 or 4 people or a sales team of 300 people, this will enable you to get the right notification email to the right salesperson at the right time in context with their relationship with that particular person. Okay, so it's those two fields at the top there that it give you the flexibility to do a few different things. All right, let's have a quick look at some forms. So here we're looking at the design portion of a form. The information you can see here at the top of the screen is essentially what the person will see when they look at the form online. You can see we've also got a progressive profiling section where we've got a number of different questions posed. But over here on the far right-hand side, you can see we're only going to display one of those at a time. And then down the bottom here, you'll see that we've got some hidden fields. Now, once you add the hidden fields, it's a little bit difficult to see if there's actually any difference in the other fields. So if you're trying to understand and confirm that it is in fact a hidden field, you'll notice that the HTML name over here under Advanced Settings shows you that it is in fact a hidden field. So you've got that information right there. So we use the lead source original and lead source most recent fields as well. And again, these are hidden fields and will transfer across in the form processing steps. So let's go back to the back end and have a look at the processing steps. You can see we're using this one is, we're looking to send something to the Oracle Account Director in this case. And so we're using, as you can see, there's a range of options here in that drop-down list. And we're using the last one, which is to use the value of a form field to select the email address. And because it's a field merge or a dynamic field, for want of a better word, it will then give us all of the fields that are available on the form, and we select, in this case, Oracle Account Director email address. You can also drive the subject line of the email, so you can use the value of a form field. So the logical one for us to use would be lead source most recent, and that would populate with that information as well. If we look at programs, so there are loads of programs in most of your systems. Just be aware that when you have a look at these programs, where you see BP, these are best practice, and these are ones that come with your system that Eloqua have prepared for you. So they're a good starting point, but you certainly need to check with your Eloqua administrator to understand if they're the right one for you to be using. Redirecting to a web page, you can see you've got two options here. You've got the ability to send them to an Eloqua landing page or to send them to an external URL. And so this is where I said you could send them to a product page on your website. You've certainly got a range of options that are available to you. So that particular form, this is what that form would look like. So you can see there is no Oracle Sales Director. There is no lead source original, lead source most recent, just simply the details that we had shown on the form. Yeah, so country is the one progressive profiling piece of data that is sitting on that particular form as well. And so as that information is captured over time, I would in fact see different fields popping up here at the end. Okay, so you can see social sharing options available, illustration of what is on offer, etc. Nice and simple with information that they need to get excited about downloading what it is you're offering. Okay, so we've got 10 minutes. We're just about done. Part of what we were talking about there was really understanding a better view of the contact. And the other objective that we talked about was understanding a better level of alignment between sales and marketing and how this information can be shared with sales through the CRM and specifically with the Eloqua Profiler function. Every interaction you have in a form is typically a way for these people to give you back information in an explicit fashion. Obviously, there's implied information you pick up from people through their digital body language, but all of that information and interaction can come back. And there are lots of ways that information can come back to you. So what we tried to do here is just give you a little bit of an idea as to where these multiple data sources can be. So if Eloqua is sitting in the center of our digital world, you might have your website providing information to people, and on the website you've maybe got forms that you're offering people. You could have a whole range of CRMs, whether you're running Oracle Sales Cloud or maybe an ERP system like JD Edwards, or perhaps you're running Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics. All of these platforms can be integrated and feed, and information and data can be fed directly into Eloqua to enhance the experience for the marketer, to make sure they can segment better and also personalize communications better. They're really the two filters as to why you would have that information. You'll notice down the bottom here as well, we've got a few other options. You've got sign in with Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. All of these functions are available as apps which you can access to help you make the process easier for people effectively to download information a little bit faster. Just as an FYI, while the plugin for LinkedIn is free, LinkedIn require you to have an extraordinary number, and some of you will meet that criteria in the drop of a hat. But I think it's something in the vicinity of tens of thousands of visitors to your website per month, and there are some other costs involved, whereas the Facebook and Twitter sign-on app is free. Just as an example, while we're talking about apps, you may want to take a look at the Oracle Cloud Marketplace. So the Oracle Cloud Marketplace is to Eloqua what the App Store is to your iPhone, for instance, exactly the same thing. This is one app that's available. This is an app that's been developed by Oracle. It's called the Contact Washing Machine. And what it does is, it says right here, it takes dirty contacts and cleans them. And so it enables you to trim and provide proper case. So if people enter their names in all lowercase, you can manipulate that data and change it to proper case, etc. There's all sorts of things that the Contact Washing Machine can do for you, and it's a free of charge app available from the Oracle Cloud Marketplace. Okay, one thing I quickly wanted to show you before we wrap up. Some of you may be aware that the Insight application is currently being modified by Oracle, and before the end of the year, hopefully before the end of the year, you will have access to a new version of Insight. So effectively, the Insight product that we use today is a non-Oracle product, has a legacy of the Eloqua original ownership, obviously, of the company. But Oracle are now working to incorporate the Oracle BI platform to help you with much better reporting. This is just a little bit of an example of the reporting that's available. This is specifically at the campaign level. It enables you to look at information in a whole range of different ways. I need to tell you this is beta at the moment. This is not a general release. This is a beta application they've loaded onto our system. It shows some information. There's information missing, but that's okay. It's still beta, so they're working on it. You've got timelines here where you can sort of break down and get a bit of a feel for what's actually happening at different periods at a glance, and these are based largely on your email groups, so you can see the various pieces of activity, and then you can actually drill through on your campaigns in quite a bit more detail as well. So another look at campaign detail. This is now looking at a specific campaign. The previous view that you had there was looking at all campaigns. So this is now drilling right down, and we can look at asset performance. You'll understand and see very quickly now the necessity of actually naming emails and assets. It's very easy to drag an email onto the canvas and just simply leave it as email. If you don't name it, you can see that this particular report would be rendered quite useless because you've really got no idea what you're looking at. So that makes life a lot easier and just gives you a bit better idea as to what's going on within the individual campaign. And these are all the various assets over here on the left-hand side. The last section we have is email analysis. This is now looking at the email group level. And again, you can start to get a feel for this is click to open rate versus unique open rate. And so you can start to find out and uncover which the high performing, which of the email groups are higher performing than others, and sort of get a bit of a feel, I suppose, and a bit more insight into what's happening within your campaigns. So and then you can filter out if I find all that information a little bit too overwhelming. You can then filter information down quite a bit and get into the detail that you're after. Here you've got activity types, so click-throughs, form submissions, etc. And then information adjusts accordingly. And then here, when you hover over it, you can see that the user group for us is quite busy. What else do we have? And events, various events, etc. And some information going out through Marketing Cube College as well. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a glimpse into that. This is just simply the dashboards. None of the detailed reports are completed at this stage or not available through this particular login, but as they slowly become available over the next few months, where we have them, we'll try and give you a little bit of a sneak peek here as well. Now, I'm just going to quickly go to Q&A. I can see Jana, we'll come back to Jana definitely on your questions, so thank you for that. Does anybody else have any questions from today's session at all? Keep in mind, you know how hopefully to contact us, just simply support@marketingcube.com.au. The support team will be online to assist you, or of course you can contact myself or Tim at any point with any questions you might have. But if you've got any questions, please utilize the chat feature. Rollout dates for the new Insight. We don't have a date as yet. What Oracle have told us is that they're anticipating it to be live before the end of the year. So as soon as we understand that, we'll certainly come back to you with a response. But we'll keep giving you sneak peeks as soon as we have them as well. All right, guys, look, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you making the time to spend some time with us. Hopefully the information in these sessions you find valuable. It really is meant to be a user group in the truest sense of the word. So what we'd love to do is love to hear from you. If there are topics that you would like covered, things you'd like explored in more detail, please feel free to send those through to Tim or to myself, and we'd be more than happy to schedule those into future webinars or even the face-to-face event as well. So thank you again. Thank you very much, and have a great day.